Yeah, if you're here, we're going to build some stuff. And I'm just waiting for files to transfer from my laptop right now. But yeah, welcome. I'm using EKM Live for the first time, so I'm still kind of getting used to all that stuff. So I don't know how many people are here yet on YouTube or Twitch. So let's see. I need to get some comments going so I can say hello to specific people. Let's see. Anybody here? Say hello if you're here. All right. Looks like we got about a dozen people or so. And all right, getting the comments here. Christian, hello. Yeah, I just want to get these little chat windows set up. Getting the comments here. Yeah, get some feedback. Hello, Ian. All right. Anybody on Twitch? Andre, what's up? It's also on Periscope. I don't know if anybody actually uses that. I don't know. I know I don't. All right, so I kind of was playing around with a little static mockup, more or less static mockup, in my laptop recently, and just trying to get the files from Dropbox here, make sure I've got everything I need to do to get going. You just don't want to sit here and watch me like design in an hour. Well, it'd be like nowhere, and that's no fun. So let me switch to my. Just a second. One more thing before I switch over to my desktop mode here. Make sure it's working. Yeah, all right, this is good enough. All right, so you should be seeing my desktop now. And I have this little static mock-up here with podcast episodes and a little information about your podcast over here on the right-hand side. And yeah, Periscope is definitely just hype. Fake news, actually. And let's see. Text. Yeah, I'm pretty new to this. I'm not sure how to fill all the dead air, but we're going to get coding in just a second here. I'm just trying to figure out when I'm not broadcasting primarily through Twitch, I don't really see the Twitch live stream chat window. I can't see that. I'm simulcasting through Restream. Justin Jackson kind of showed everybody that last week, and I thought that was a pretty cool way to kind of get YouTube and Twitch at the same time. Talk about how you let your fans down. Well, that's sad. Do you need to tell me how I let my fans down? I don't really know what that means. Is that like a thing? Is that what like streamers do? Maybe I'm just like missing the joke. Yeah, I could play some music in the background. That's good. All right. All right, what? Am I like legally allowed to play music in the background? I don't even know the terms. I'll play my brother's music. I know that's fine. I don't know how that loud that is. Yeah, it's legal. Sweet. I'll just say that Happy Boy said it was legal, so we're just gonna play anything I want. In that case, let me just do something a little more peaceful. There we go. Recording may cause them... Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, recording may cause the recording to be muted if I play copyrighted music. That is what I thought. You know what? I have D&D music that is copyright free, so I'll just play my my tavern music from when I DM with my crew. Let's see. This should probably be okay. Alright. Let's start building something. This is actually in a Statamic site right now, but more like it's not actually doing anything. I don't know if it's important that you watch me start clean or if I should just go into here. Let's see. I know we need to get this going. Just open this up in Atom. I'll take a quick look at what we've actually got here. If I should just start over. We're using Statamic 2.9.8. Yeah, this is a little while ago. I was tinkering around with this. We'll just upgrade it. PHP, please. We'll update Statamic. What? Alright, latest version of Statamic here. We've got our code, and we'll go into the theme. Let's see, which I clearly just copied from another project. Call it Caster, and rename this Caster. And I just closed Atom. Good start. Alright, so this should really just be all here in the default. And I'm loading a nav, content, a footer, and really the bulk of what we're looking at here is just this home page. And should I start from the beginning and like set this up? Let's make sure. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, so basically this first block here is we're looping through. I'm just using some Vue.js to kind of mock out 12 like sample podcast episodes. Start where I feel is necessary. All right, we're starting with basically static HTML, and I've just got a hard-coded asset here, and nothing is really set up in the control panel. So let's kind of stub a few things out. Content. Yeah, we don't even have any collections or anything. So, control panel in Statamic is /cp, and let's see. I probably move this off some here. All right. So, in Statamic, users are just these YAML files. And if you set a password in them, like in this case secret, and then I'll show this like on the fly here. I type in secret, and the password immediately gets hashed and salted and all that good stuff. So we've got that set, and we'll call this Caster. That's our home page using the home template. We're in the control panel. We've got some static HTML. And kind of assembled with Tailwind, and let's just get started. A podcast is really just a bunch of episodes, which are MP3 files and like show notes and show description, right? So we'll create a collection called episodes. And these are going to be date-based because that's pretty important. And we don't have a field set for these, so we'll create one called episodes. And we'll come back here. We'll set a default template later. We'll just save this, and now we can create new entries, and each entry will be an episode. Okay, so I like working with files personally. Music is loud? All right, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm talking now. I don't really need it. I'll just turn that off. And my windows are open. Let me close those. Is that any better? Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll pop this open. Yeah, the CSS is not done. Yeah. Music was a good sound. Yeah, that's fine. I'll try the music, and I'll just try it quieter. Why not? Let's try that. All right. So we've got episode title, we've got episode summary, and then we've got an MP3 file. This is like really the three things plus the date and episode number. So let's create a field set to kind of map those fields. So we've got this episodes field set, and we've got a title. We're just going to call that title. Do the quick add. We've got we'll do markdown for the episode summary, and we'll just call it content. And we'll add an assets field for the episode. So we'll call it audio file. And that's pretty much it. We've got, it's already date based, so we don't really have to do anything else. So we'll save that. And in our episodes/folder.yaml file, this is our kind of configuration file for a collection. We'll just tell it to use the episodes field set by default. And that's pretty much all we need to do. Now if we come back and create a new episode, we will have a title, a content field, and an audio file. Now we haven't actually specified an asset container. So we'll go down to our content, go to assets. And there should be this main one. Yeah, it wasn't cleared out. It probably has like the sample stuff in it. Episodes. Yeah, this forest MP3, and here's some like demo stuff, so I'll just clear that out. That's assets, image folder. I'll just delete that. All right, which means all we need to do is come back to our field set, episodes, and just actually specify which container we're using here in the extras tab of this audio file, and we can tell it to use main assets and the episodes folder. We're going to only have one file, that way you don't need multiple files per episode. And we're going to keep all the files to this folder. All right, we'll save that, come back to episodes, create a new one, and we'll say episode 1 is Hello Internet. And we'll give it a little lorem ipsum. And we'll pick that forest MP3 for now. This will be our first episode. We'll save that. And then now back in our home template, which is looping through these things, we can kill this dummy loop. And we'll replace June 8 with date. And I can never remember PHP date formatting, so we're just going to go here and look up the reference. I have way too many things in my head. So we got cap M, format, and then day of the month, which is probably just D, right? Or J. Yeah, lowercase j. All right. Episode index should be like the loop, and we want the lowest one on top, so that's actually not going to give us the episode number we want. We have to come back to this. If we're doing date-based entries, if we're doing date-based entries, we don't automatically have like an order, an automatically incrementing ID here. So we'll leave this number like this, episode number. We'll replace the title, and over here we'll replace the content, and we'll replace the audio file. Come back to the home page, and we don't have that looping through because I'm not actually looping. So this, let's see, this whole block, let me kind of roll back to here. This for loop, this is what we're going to loop over, and we'll grab all the entries from the episodes collection. And we'll close that loop here. Now we should have, here's our first episode. Here's our all of our information. So if we create multiple episodes, we'll be able to have several in there. So let's just create a second one so we can make sure that the ordering is working correctly and all of that. So Hello Internet is going to be our first episode. Let's put that into the past, like last Wednesday. And then we'll create a new episode called wherein we explore the forest. And we'll grab some more lorem ipsum. Pick that same forest MP3 again. Let's see. Got a little preview window in the way here. Put that over here. Forest.mp3. We'll save that. Date is today, so that should be the newest one. And there we go. Here's last week's. Here's this week's. And they're in the right order. I'll kill Spotify and we'll just make sure this works. Yep. Player's working. Things are in good shape. I mean, honestly, this is basically a podcast minus the RSS feed. So we've got some kind of global information over here in that sidebar, which we can set up as a global. I think a global would make sense. A global variable. We have like a logo, a little summary, and then like your various links that you can store there. And so let's just set that up. So everything that's on the screen is dynamically generated. And we'll come back to this episode number. So in the control panel, we're going to go to the global section where you can see we don't have anything. So content, globals, general, we'll add some fields. All right, so it's already set up to use this globals field set. We're going to make a new field set and call it site info podcast. Just podcast. How about podcast? We'll create that. We'll save here, go down to the field set called podcast, and we'll make a couple of fields. So we're gonna have logo, description, and feed links. All right, so logo, description, field links. So we probably should also have a podcast name. So we'll start with we don't need a title field. We'll make it just a text field. Called podcast name. Although these are going to be scoped inside the podcast, we'll just call it name. That should be fine. Asset called logo, and let's make sure we pick the asset container. We'll just have a folder in the root. So I'm going to need one. We'll add a description, which is going to be markdown field. Sure. And then the last thing is the links. All right, so the links are going to be, actually have two little aspects, right? There's a label and there's a URL. So we'll use a grid field for that. Feed links. And we'll add a field inside that. The first one will just be, we'll have some text fields. So we're going to have label, and then URL. Yeah. Save that. Come back to our globals. And that's not working. Let's make sure we've got that set up right. Got to use that field set. Let's make a new global set. This will be called podcast. Yeah. That'll use the podcast settings. And then, yeah, now we get this like general globals and then podcast specific. You can have a global set for anything you want, like maybe you want footer or store information or shared links or whatever you want. It's just kind of nice to scope these inside their responsibility. So we'll call this podcast, I don't know, Forest Explorers. Just Explorers. And a logo. I don't have a logo file ready. Let's just like grab this palm tree off our desktop. I said our desktop, it's definitely my desktop. Drag this in. We'll select that one. And this is a podcast where we explore things. That's really all we do here. And we've got our feed links. So we'll have iTunes. We'll just leave like a hash for now. We'll come back and add these later. Raw RSS. Maybe even have like an Overcast URL. And we'll save that data. So that should all be in there. And you're going to see that data stored in your site content. And that is a global, so it'll be in the podcast file. And here we go. Here's all of that stuff. So back here, we can set, you can tell what this podcast is about. Podcast description, just the names of these vars here. Podcast description. Probably going to type it wrong, so let me copy and paste that. There we go. We'll loop through the links, which is feed links. Podcast feed links. And we'll put the label here, and we'll put the URL here. It's just label and URL. We can add a little like target blank, right? Kick them off to a new page. And if we refresh, we should see, yeah, there we go. Here's our stuff. Now, I didn't replace this logo because this was kind of styled with Tailwind. So we'll just take all this out and really just replace that with the image. So podcast logo, right? It's probably gonna be pretty oversized. Yeah, actually kind of planned ahead. We have the little bottom margin. A little more. A little more. Yeah, looks pretty good. All right, we now have a fully dynamic listing of our episodes, which is a pretty good start. We need to figure out how to show the episode number, and then we need to hook up the RSS feed that you would submit to Apple or whatever your podcast service is. So let's get through the podcast feed stuff because that's required. Well, I think of the best way to show that. I think I may have pulled down a demo feed. Yeah, and kind of messed around with this. And so maybe we'll just step through this versus like just sit here and Google XML stuff. And then we'll set up how to actually show this. All right, so in our layout file, each page in Statamic can be rendered with a layout, which is kind of like your outer wrapper, and then there's also the template, which is kind of injected into the middle right here. So when it comes to rendering like an XML file, you generally want to have a separate layout to handle that. And now that I'm looking at this, we don't need to show the template name. We'll just do podcast name for our title tag. Sorry, distracted squirrel. So we have this feed XML, which is pretty much copy and paste from like Apple's recommended feed. And then we have a couple different elements here. There is the channel information, which is, I clearly just like scraped this off of an existing podcast, which is a good way to do that. And then we're going to set podcast title and the URL and the site URL. And there's all these little data bits that you kind of need to set. So it's probably a good idea to have all of these managed somewhere, which would be a good place for our globals. And then there's like categories, and then there's the author, and then here's your episodes. Okay, so let's take a look and make sure we have all the stuff we need. We got the order, we got the title, got the link. Now that I'm looking at this and kind of thinking that the order of the episodes is most important, and the date is just kind of like extra. So if we change the collection type, the default order type from date to order, we'll be able to have that number, and then we can just set a date variable. So let's just do that and kind of walk through that, and then we'll come back to this feed. Should have just started there. So in our collections, we'll go to our folder and we'll set the order to be number. And then we're gonna actually need to rename these so that the first one starts with 1, and we'll set a date here. We'll call it podcast date, or episode date. Just call it episode date. And we'll do that to both of these. 2. Okay, then we'll go back to our field set. We'll do this in the files this time. Field sets are down in settings, field sets, episodes. Okay, so we'll add a episode date. Paste fail. And then type is going to be a date field, and it should default to the current display episode date. All right, so if we come back to our control panel, go to the episodes, we should see, unless I broke something, these should still load. Yep. And that one. We still have those dates. We still have a date picker, which is great, except now they also have an order key. And you can actually reorder these if you wanted, so you could just, make one newer or older. Probably also want to show the order in this list, because that's pretty useful information. So we'll add fields, order, and then title. And we should also want the date. The slug is not really that important, so let's just hide the slug. And that didn't work. I think that's wrong. Let's check the docs, because there are so many features we need to check the docs. I need to check the docs too. Where is that going to be? Order key. Let's see. Yep. Let's go to the collection section, and we'll go down to it's order key for one, and then it is we need to look up customizing columns. Just columns, title slug. Oh yeah, it's just the name of it. Order, it's probably going to be order key, title, and date. And we'll refresh. Nope. Am I in the right file? Oh, I'm in the field set. Okay, yeah, I'm one of those days where I wasn't getting anything done, and I thought maybe I should just build something clean. And so, yeah, that's just watching me be who I am today. In the episodes field folder file, this is like the collections settings. It just goes here, okay? Not on the field set. There we go. So we have the order, we have the title, we have the date, and let's see. Can we rename those columns? Yeah, we could rename them. So we'll call this one value. Yeah, the value is going to be the order, and then the header is going to be, we're going to call it episode number. Nope, don't need Photoshop. Episode number. Cool. We can also set a width. So maybe we only need like 10% there. Kind of shrink that column. There we go. Episode number, episode, we got the title and the date. Of course, the date is actually episode date, right? Let's hook that up. There we go. That's looking better. Yep. Thank you. Episode date. And you also need to tell it like which fields you want to link when you start customizing them. See here, link true. So we're just going to set that like on all of them. So value is title. Maybe we'll give it a header of episode name. Link true. And value. That's showing fine. Just have all of these columns link. Yeah, there we go. So each one will link in to edit it. All right, you may have noticed this. Clearly I'm just like duplicating sites. And let me just move that off screen and go to my settings and take a license key out and go back to the dashboard. There we go. Ta-da, proper message. All right, now let's create an episodes kind of placeholder page, and we'll just have a default episodes. And we'll just have like all of these episodes like mounted here. And now in our page list, we can just add and edit them right here. Nice little kind of shortcut. And we also want to set a route for our episodes. So coming back here, each episode should have a unique URL, and we didn't mess around with that yet. So let's kind of close some stuff out and get back to our template. Let's link. Okay, hang on. We've got to update the date, and then we can bring this number in. So let's do that. Date, we'll call it episode date. And that should be good. Then episode number is going to be order. Here we go. Episode 1, episode 2. Now we just need to sort this reverse so the newest one's on top. Sort by order, and it'll be descending. That's not right. Is it pipe? I think it's pipe. It's hard to remember your own thing sometimes. Order key, comma. All right, so nope, that's the users tag. We're going to go to the collections tag, and we're going to use our own documentation because that's the best way to remember stuff. It's going to be a parameter, which is going to be sort by title, order, make sure I have order number. Yep. Oh, it's colon. That's it. I don't need to document this. I'll remember it later. Yeah, exactly. And then you have 9,000 things, and then just eventually, yeah, you just can't remember it all. Recency effect only. Okay, so now we're sorted. Newest episode first. Or, yep, and then older episodes behind. And we don't have URLs yet, so let's do that. And we don't have any links to any episodes. So let's link the episode title. We'll pass the URL here. And let's see what happens. Okay, so we have a link. Great. And if you can see down here in the bottom, it doesn't go anywhere. So we haven't defined any routes yet for this collection. So if we go to our routes file, we're going to have a collection for, let's see, actually collection, how's this formatted? Another thing here. Collection. Live coding, just everything just kind of like leaves your head. This is the route I want, and let's just save that, and then look at the syntax. Okay, yeah, collections, taxonomies, routes. I just want the order number, right? In our collections, we're gonna have a route rule for this collection, and it's gonna be the order. Let's see if that works. No, because that? Maybe order is not one of the reserved things. Like if I did slug, oh, it's single quotes here. There we go. /2/1. All right, so we didn't make a template for that. Just clearly had some like leftover content from a other project. So let's create our single episode template, and we'll go to our theme, which is here, templates, clear out our default template, and we'll just grab, really, we could just have this one layout for every episode too, right? Just we're not going to be looping through them. So if we make a couple of partials here, make a partial for episode, and over here, let's just kill these. We're not using them, right? These are pretty much empty. Put that here. And let's just make sure that our home page is still loading. Yep. And then we have this right bar here. We'll call this podcast, I don't know, call out? Partial. We'll call it about. Yeah. And we made a partial for that. Put that there. Then our default template can just be pretty clean, with just the one episode in it. There we go. One way to do it. You could make something totally different if we wanted to. Like maybe we don't want this sticky stuff, right? We could just take it out and remove the sticky and the styling, the top style here. Now we don't get that scroll and there's no episode below it. So that's another way we could do it. It's a little less dry, but I honestly don't have a problem duplicating markup because markup is cheap and you should be able to change your markup without being afraid to. Like if I change it here, it's going to break something somewhere else. So I tend to duplicate a lot more markup than I do create logic because logic is expensive. HTML is not. So I'm fine with this. Guess we should get back to the podcast feed, huh? We need a link to the... I won't repeat that. We'll link this in the about partial to the homepage, so we have something linking to the homepage. All right. Pretty cool. And to the feed. So we'll close everything that we don't need out. Partials, settings, almost. All right. This feed, like the nightmare of all XML stuff. There's going to be some more fields that we're going to need here. Probably should create some categories. We're going to need some more global variables. But let's get this to render first so we can look at it in the browser, and then we'll go ahead and tinker with it. So we're going to go back to our routes file, and we're going to create a route for just a general route, and we'll call it feed, and we'll tell it to use the feed.xml layout. And then we're going to have it do, we're not going to need a template. We're just going to do everything right in the layout. And we're going to do, what is it, encoding XML, or is it RSS, or is it headers? I have to look that up in a second, but we'll try this here. Do we need to set the .xml? All right. Let's look at the error. Layout feed doesn't exist. Okay, so we do have the feed.xml. I think I just need to set the encoding type. Maybe it's just XML. If somebody knows, shout it out. I'm going to use my own docs again. Variable content types. Content type. That's the secret. I'm interested in logic is expensive, markup is cheap. Yeah, I'll loop back to that in a minute. Maybe I'll even kind of go through an example of what I mean. But back to figuring out why this isn't loading, which is sure a simple thing. I think I actually can't call it .xml. I think that's the problem. Okay. Yep. And then this is going to get stripped out because the way the parser works is it sees these as an attempt to write PHP. So if we rip what's with the delay on this chat? Just the live streams have delay. It's like 5 or 6 seconds. There's less delay on Twitch than YouTube, and I don't know if there's a better way to, like, if you can take it with settings or something. I don't know. I'll get better at it, hopefully, if there's any better to get. But over here, if you see XML, there's a little tag called XML header, which lets us render this. And we'll put that right there. And this should, just wanted to know second delay. This should clear that error up. All right, so we now have an actual RSS feed. And we'll validate that in a little bit, but let's get the information updated. We've got podcast title. So let's open up our podcast globals file. Get rid of this, get rid of that, and we're just going to work through the basics here. So the name is Explorers, right? And what the title to use the podcast name, or I could rename this to be title, whichever. The URL is of the RSS feed, I guess. So we could do a few things here. We could like write a loop and look for the RSS URL here, which maybe is one way to do it. Maybe we just have a little bit of duplication for now, and we just have, we'll just set a URL here, which would be like, I don't know, website.example or example.com feed. Okay, this would be our URL, and so that'll pull that in. Then a link is the site URL. That's just a dynamic variable. We've got the description here. That's already a thing. Last modified is the system variable. That's going to pull the last time that it's been modified, so that's automatic. This is going to be automatic. Update period or hourly. So if I don't set this, it's going to use hourly. So we'll just come here and say daily. We'll come through after this and add these new fields to the field set. I like doing this. I like building my data model out and playing with it and changing with the names, make sure it all feels good before I go actually making the field set. But you can toggle back and forth however you want to do. Statamic is really flexible that way. You don't have to decide now or later, and then you can just do a find all and project and replace stuff. So it's really flexible as you go. The generator is statamic.com/caster, like assuming this was the name of a theme, like if I was going to release this theme. Maybe I will. Copyright. I can't tell if your jokes are low quality, Happy Boy. The timing is so bad, but they're probably good. Copyright, let's say like 2018, or let's just use like a dynamic copyright here. We'll say like now format, we'll just pull the year in, and then site podcast name. Let's just make sure these things are being updated, right? 2018 Explorers, Caster, Daily, all that stuff's being pulled in. Cool. All right, now we've got this image, and we have one of those already, right? We have podcast logo, and again, we have podcast name, and this is like a link to the website. So that'll be site URL with 144. I think that's like how you're supposed to do it, so that's fine. Now there is a subtitle and a summary, so we can add those fields. Subtitle. It's just a fake podcast. And summary. Seriously, we pretend to explore stuff, but nothing happens because it's not real. And then keywords as a list. So this is going to just turn a list of keywords into a list, or you could just like have a field like this. Keywords. Fake news. Seriously. Am I a DM? Yes, I am. I am a DM, and I have a little side project that I haven't worked on for a while called Dungeon Master Academy, where I teach other people to DM and have some other writers who are working on content. Is it funny? D&D is awesome, so if you're making fun of me, like, it's not working. Yeah, That's what I do. I make up stuff on the fly. I don't think I actually know everything or know anything. I just kind of like, I'm really good at guessing, and nothing sticks. All right, author, title, this is name. We've done that before. I really should just call it title. Let's do that. Done. See, this is why I like Statamic. I can decide. I can rename stuff later if it feels wrong. Although, now that I'm looking at this again, it is the name. Now I'm using the title for the name. But up here, I guess the title is the title. Naming things is hard. I don't care. You can make podcasts that are blockable by iTunes. We can say block. We'll set that to false. Actually, that should be like yes and no. I think technically it should be like the words yes or no. So we'll just say no, and then explicit, definitely not. And then you've got that image again, which we called it logo, right? All right. So we didn't make author. Let's come back, take a look. Looks good, looks good. Now this link, okay, so the link, we just had a relative URL. We want to make sure that's using an absolute URL. So let's go back to the link, and we're gonna want to do like permalink. I think should do it. No. If you set in your system settings, if you set your URL to be like example.com. Now if I do this, my URLs are going to be generated with this, and that's not going to be great. So for now, let's just hard code this to example.com. All right. Anything else look out of place? We're validating HTML on a live or XML on a live stream. This is like the most boring live stream ever. We got these categories. I'm gonna leave them comment out for now. All right, author, title, email, block, explicit, logo. Then we were looping through the episodes. So we've got the order and the title, that's good. The permalink's gonna be good. The date format's good. Creator, let's just use author instead. And that'll be hooked up. Categories, we can make a taxonomy and like have categories for any given episode. Yeah. Description, we called it content. And we've got audio, I think I called it audio file. Right? Audio file. And there's a duration, subtitle, description, podcast author. Okay, so pretty close here. The summary, like it gets, this is the kind of thing that is kind of opinionated when it comes to podcasts, is you have all these different, like really similar like fields. So if we're gonna like open up iTunes and take a look at one, like if we went to, where do you even find them? Podcasts? Okay. If we looked at, I don't know if it matters that I like the podcast. Kind of matters to me that I like the podcast if we're going to inspect it. But I don't know. I haven't seen any of these. We'll just, this one's called Axios, which probably has nothing to do with JavaScript Ajax library, but we'll just use this. So if you've got this, now we're looking at Trump stuff. What a disaster. All right. How to play Siri audio briefs. Sure. All right. Let's look at one of these. Okay, this looks like a title. You got a date. And here's like, is this the summary? Is this the description? What is it? It's so confusing. Do they have... Let's look at their RSS. Let's see. Okay. Episode number, seasons. Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing. All right, got the summary is like the short thing. Do they even have description? They don't even have description. Oh, here it is. Here in audio brief, it's the same thing, but escaped. The C data escape. All right, cool. Good enough for me. So we're going to use content with the modifier here that escapes it, and then we're going to use in the summary same thing again. Content. Yeah, we have the author. We have explicit. Okay, yeah, this looks like it's probably valid. RSS validator. Let's find out. Let's copy and paste this into here, and let's find out. Unknown entity, XML parsing error, XML or declaration. Okay. Does it need to be on its own line? Our feed is not well formed. It's not being escaped. XML sucks. Needs to be 2.0. Is that important? Because like XML version 1, XML version 2.0. What is this site using? Oh yeah, it's like this separate RSS thing. Let's just grab this line. We're doing that. Compelling content. What are they doing here? Looks pretty much the same. Maybe it needs to be one big long string. I don't know. Who can know when it comes to XML, right? Any difference there? I don't really see any. It doesn't like, what is it, that space? This space? There's like a space there it didn't like. Okay. Invalid URLs. Okay, so this is good stuff. There's some things that we missed, which is all part of building this. All right, so let's come back. There's an email field in here. Podcast editor or podcast email. Let's add an email. And so we'll check that one off the list. Last build date. All right, so the last build date, let's see what these guys are using. Build, they're not even doing that. Must be optional. We'll kill the optional stuff. All right, let's revalidate. And I'll fix this later. All right. Does anybody have an idea here? I just clicked it twice and then it worked. I don't know. We need a full URL and what else? Yeah, it's just these full URLs seem to be pretty important. Obviously, because they can't get in my computer. We didn't set a duration, and we actually have HTML in here, and that's a no-no. So since we're using a markdown field, it's going to store in this front-loaded markdown area. If we don't want that to be turned into markdown, we can use, where's content here? And let's just check which field again real quick. In the summary. So down here we can use content raw, and it will not do the markdown transformation, so that's an option. We could also move that to a text area field and make sure we're not typing any stuff in there, or we can run escaping or whatever, but that should be enough for now. As far as the URLs go, we have a couple of options. We could just put the domain name in there. Like, we could just set domain sample.com, so we just do that. I really don't like hard coding an absolute domain name in, so then it's harder to move it around from like dev to production, so I kind of like avoid that until like the last possible minute. You can put it in an environment variable, which is another way to do that. I just don't feel like it right now. So in the images, let's look for a logo. We can just put this here. Ooh, put podcast domain like that. This is totally okay. And then, wasn't there a standard file called site URL? Yeah, so there is. Site URL is going to use in your system settings. It's going to use this, which right now is set to a slash because that's what I like. You could set that to be example.com and then it'll be added everywhere. But I don't like that. You can do it that way. I'm not going to. I'm just going to prefix the URLs. This is the one and only place where we need to do this. And once you set this, you can forget it, right? So let's see. Anywhere else I'm using that logo? Image href podcast logo. Anywhere else? Right there. All right. Let's update. Let's validate again. Must be a full invalid URL on line 20. Now, what part of this is not a full URL? That's a full URL. It's ridiculous. Link. Yeah, same issue here. It's pretty close. Duration. Email address is missing a real name. Okay, so this has one of those fun patterns. What are these guys doing? Webmaster, managing editor. Okay, parentheses name, huh? We can do that. Podcast author. Webmaster and managing editor. Webmaster, managing editor. All right, so we'll put this up here also. I'm still not sure about this XML header, what that deal is. But otherwise, this is mostly working. Mostly working. Is that what you came here to see? Come watch Jack build a mostly working podcast theme in about an hour. It's not the worst. All right. It's something. All right. So like this iTunes and RSS stuff, assuming this feed works, right? Assuming it was validated and everything, it'll be at this URL. We can come back to our globals. Let's just kind of wrap this up more or less. Podcast. And we'll put iTunes, RSS, and let's just assume that this is like the right feed for all of those things. and we changed it to name. Oh, we didn't actually update this field set. Mostly working. Yeah. That's how we roll. So let's come back here and update this with what we set up over here. So name, we renamed title. And then we added like subtitle. And then we added keywords. Let's have a bunch of text fields here. And then we added summary. A summary, we ended up just using, oh, this is the podcast summary, right? Yeah, summary, that's fine. Another text field called author, and text field called domain, and so let's make a select box for update period, and give that a couple of, did I make, oh, I made section, that's wrong. Select, called update period. And we'll have, the value should be like hourly. I believe it's just daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. Okay, then we'll add, let's say, a radio button for block. And the values of that are going to be yes and no. And then we'll do another one for explicit. Yes. And no. And I think we got everything. Description, summary, all that stuff. All right, so we come back to our globals and our podcast. Now we have title, logo, description, feed link, subtitle, keyword, summary, author, domain, update period, block, explicit. Yep. And all that stuff should be respected here. We didn't do categories, which would be another field type. I just don't know what all the options are. You have to go pick them from somewhere. But yeah, I mean, assuming you figured out what the last one or two little things were here, you could just then take this URL and submit it to Apple, and you'd basically be good to go. You could recreate a new episode, and then drop your file in here, upload it, publish it, boom, and you'd be good to go. If you were using a service like transistor.fm by Justin Jackson, who was doing some Statamic stuff a couple days ago, recently, he has this really cool player. So we could actually hook up this player instead of the file upload, and so you could have like automatic use Transistor to manage your RSS feed, and then have your own website where you can have your own episode details and like comments if you wanted to use discuss or something, and use this player, which really is just like this embed code, right? So you have like an embed, and if we were going back to the episode.html, instead of this audio file, using like that native HTML audio tag, if you did this, and then you set like this ID is like your unique ID for your episode, I guess, episode ID, then you could, let's just kind of like demo this. episode ID. Come back, go to the home page, and it's something wrong. Maybe that URL isn't like cool to embed, or is it the second one that I did? Oh yeah, it was the second one. Yeah, so then you just have like this player instead, which would be pretty cool.
Hi, I'm Colleen, your host.
Hi, Colleen. You can even switch between the two. I don't know why you would do that. But yeah, there you go. Podcast theme. I don't know if people like this, I can throw this up on GitHub, clean it up, figure out what's wrong with that last little RSS thing. It's kind of, it's kind of rudimentary. It can look like whatever you want though. But there you go. Anybody have any questions? Who was it that wanted me to talk about complexity and HTML is cheap? Are you still here? Sorry, I'm scrolling back up. Eurocomas99. Eurocomas? Are you still here? Am I saying that even remotely? He's gone. Okay. For anyone else listening, I think that HTML is cheap because you can change it, and a lot of times we have this tendency to create really clever markups so that you can reuse it, and then the logic that you need to make those different tweaks and changes ends up being more complicated than just copying and pasting some HTML. Now, obviously, if you want to be able to change it in one place and change it everywhere, and you know you're going to be doing that, that's one thing. But honestly, in my experience building web stuff since for the last 17 years, there's been very few times when that actually has happened. And so the kinds of things that I end up seeing is stuff like in your layout or whatever system, doesn't have to be Statamic, whatever you're using. Let me just kind of roll this back. People do stuff like this, right? So you have your theme, you have your layout, and some page needs to be, okay, you are here, yeah. Some page needs to be different. So you start to do stuff like adding classes like page slug or page ID or something. And then you kind of write some checks for let's say, if segment 1 equals episodes, then you do this, and else you do some other version of it, and you end up with these really long lists of logic where maybe all you really needed to do was make 2 templates, one template call, you just duplicate it and call it transistor episode, and then you would just pick transistor episode in your drop down on the episode, and it would just have this block or the other block. It's just a lot easier to follow that logic, what's happening where, right? You get these long checks for if something or other, add a class, otherwise add another class, and sometimes it makes sense, but anytime you pivot the entire layout of multiple pages, especially stuff here, it just gets more and more dense, to understand where the change is actually coming from, whether it's in CSS or what's actually triggering it, or if it's based on a URL segment. And then you rename a page, then all of a sudden your site breaks, where your site shouldn't break because you rename something. You should explicitly be changing the thing that breaks the site so that you're about to break it. Does that make sense? If you change the template that you're using, if you've got a drop down called template, if we came to our episodes, episodes.yaml file, and I let you have different templates here. And we used a templates picker, right? So you came in here, episodes, you're creating a new episode, and you had, sorry, it's indentation, right? Nope. Template does not exist. Template. Okay, right. So if you had this template field, you'd know you're going to change the layout when you pick a different template, right? But if you change the slug, you wouldn't expect your site to all of a sudden break because the slug changed. So all I'm saying is that the logic is more expensive, like it's more dangerous because it's hidden from the end user. Does that make sense? Maybe I could kind of formulate some more practical examples and do a live cast on that. Those are the kind of things like when people ask us to like do code reviews on their Statamic sites. Maybe they have a big site that needs to go live, and there are a lot of big sites that run on it. So we sometimes hop in and help look through some like more complicated sites. Those are the things that I look for. They're almost like code smells when there's a lot of really clever stuff to kind of avoid rewriting what ends up just being rewriting some HTML, when just copy and paste the HTML, and that way if you need to change it, you can just change it later and not break anything else. That's my personal opinion. Doesn't always apply, but that's all I meant by that. Does anybody have any other questions? Anything you'd like to see or show, or maybe I missed something, or I cut something out by duplicating a site and kind of like hacking on it versus starting from the beginning before I wrap up? I don't see anybody on Twitch. Even if you're there, I don't see that you're here. That makes sense. It sort of flies in the face of don't duplicate code, make it dynamic, but then it just gets super complicated. Yeah, so all those principles are like, I like to think of like Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Like they're more like guidelines than rules. Keeping code dry is important, but at the expense of making your code more complicated or harder to understand. We're finally seeing a good push by a lot of like prominent developers like Adam Wathan and Taylor Otwell and like Laracon a couple weeks ago. That was a big theme of like, dude, don't make it so complicated. Like sometimes copy and paste is cool. Like that was a recurring theme that made me really happy because I think that's really important. Like dry code, don't repeat yourself code at the expense of everything else is not great. If you can repeat yourself less without adding any more complexity, if you can make that code really readable, great. I think it applies a lot more on the back end, like in PHP or like Rails or JavaScript, if that's what you're doing. HTML, I really think HTML should be the most disposable part of your site, which is why utility frameworks like Tailwind are so useful, because you're actually making those decisions at the very last possible point, and nothing depends on them, right? So you have a blog template, and maybe you want to make a tweak to a blog, like a particular blog entry, and instead of like writing a if blog type equals super special, and then you like add some classes and render something, just duplicate the blog template and then make your changes in that and call it special blog post or whatever, and then just use that template. That is going to have less chances of like breaking something unexpectedly because it's now explicitly defined. And sure, you've duplicated your H1 and some of your content classes, but you're just, the CSS is the thing that you want. If you have like cleanly abstracted CSS, that stuff you don't want to change unless you have to. You want to make sure that those are reusable classes. Otherwise, you can just use utilities for like float left, right, like top and bottom margin, and push those decisions off to the end. So that's all I'm saying. Just my opinion. Take it or leave it. But thanks for coming. And hopefully this was useful. And I'll do another one. If you have any requests for new episodes or things you want me to cover, I can totally do that. We don't have to do Statamic. I love it, but I freaking love Tailwind too. We could play around with Tailwind sometime. Follow me on YouTube or Twitch, and tell me that you enjoyed this stream. And I'm not great at self-promotion on this kind. I'm not used to that, but the more people who enjoy these, the more I'll do it. Otherwise, it'll just be something fun I did that one time. See ya. want me to come back and talk about super heavy class approaches? Are you still here, happy boy? I don't have to end the stream yet. I'll give you a second. I can try to... Yeah. All right, you're still here. All right. Yep. I'll show you why I like Tailwind. I don't have anything like playing off the top of my head, but let's pretend like I did. Okay, so what you can do with Tailwind, like this site is all using... Hang on, does this look right? Something seems like different to me here. I'm not sure what I did. But anyway, something with the live stream. Let me kill these. Go back to an episode. Right, it's like this stuff you don't like, right? This drives you crazy. Let me go to an episode. And... Right, so let's take a look at... Like, when you're experimenting with this, like maybe I want... like I don't want uppercase and I want font normal. You change that and you tweak it. I'm in transistor episode. This is not a thing that we ended up hooking up. Here we go. It's great for kind of designing in code. So I want to play around with different font sizes without having to change my CSS every time. I want to just try, playing with this stuff. I can do it all right here. And I know you can do that in CSS, right? You can like tweak your CSS, refresh the page or live update. But once you're done, like you're experimenting, you haven't even started any CSS yet. Let's see how much CSS I actually have written in this theme. I think I did it in resources, assets, less. A bunch of copy and pasted stuff. Like I didn't use most of this. I didn't use any of this. But basically, this is a really bad example because I kind of didn't plan ahead. If I took all this stuff out, let's just try this. And I bet you I'm using like none of it. Except maybe this one. Yeah, I'm not using any of that stuff. Okay, and in this utilities file, I'm probably just using these and that. There's just some stuff that I bring around for every project, like mixing blend modes and sticky stuff, right? So I have this one class, and this is literally all of the CSS that I've written in the site. Okay, so the rest of this is all done. Not that there's a lot to look here, but if I add another import like styles, and I have this file here, now I can start to extract this. So I know, all right, I love this style. I'm going to reuse this all over the place. I can take this and call it episode box, and then come here and just apply these styles. Episode box. And let's see, import styles. Let me just restart that. I think it didn't have that file when it was starting. Yeah, okay, so this should refresh and that should be fine. It's not fine. Styles, episode box. Yeah, it just browser cache. Okay. So now I have this style that's assembled out of these utilities. And these utilities work like variables. I can slap these blend modes up, sure. These are kind of like mixins and variables and stuff that are now reused throughout the site. And now I can take this and call it like episode number if I want to. and go back here. Refresh. And we're still good to go. And then something that is really good to do is like make sure if you're going to reuse stuff, you take out positioning. You often can take the positioning out of your components. Maybe you want to reuse this text style, right? So there's a couple of opinionated things happening here, like that it needs to have this margin top and that it's right aligned. So we can take these out. And now instead of being episode number, we just have like, I don't know, just call it fancy text. It's a terrible name, but we call this fancy text. Then we add these modifiers to it right here. And now we have this fancy text we can use all over the place, but maybe somewhere else, you know, I want to use fancy text here. And why is this not actually loading? And like test this ahead of time that it was actually hooked up right. Content. If you want to add other CSS to it, do you rely on Tailwind to apply everything, or can you write your own custom CSS? Yeah, absolutely. Margin 50 pixels. Yeah, you can just go like this. And then you can do another like apply block here. But it has this really, really nice syntax that you just can decide on the fly and move stuff around and then extract patterns once they show up. That's the best part is like I don't know exactly what I want all the time. And so I just move stuff around in my code until I see these patterns of like, all right, we've got this italic large text thing. Normal CSS doesn't disappear anywhere. What does that mean? Are you referring to this build that's clearly not right, or? Anyway, oh yeah. Yeah, you can mix and match as much as you want. You extract components. You can create your own like utilities. You get responsive stuff right out of the box. So if you want to do like only on, like I want this margin top only on a larger browser, like we can do large and prefix it like this. And let's look at our home template. Yeah, partial episode. You'll pretend to understand. Yeah. I think I have Tailwind stripped down a little bit too much here to like actually give you a really good example. I'm sorry, but I like it. I don't know. That was not very compelling. I can do a video on it though. I know Adam Wathan has done plenty, but I can. It's mostly used for moving and building demo, and when it comes to production, you'll condense it down. You can condense it down, but you know it's already working, and if you're never going to change it, you can just leave it. There's really nothing wrong with that. Or maybe you're doing stuff in view components, and you can just leave all those classes there. I mean, we're beyond the point where people have any time to just like inspect your HTML and like judge you based on it, because a lot of times it's generated, nobody knows, and nobody cares. If it bothers you that you have all these strings here, like, so be it. But you can extract those into little components, and then it's just so nice to be able to move stuff around when you don't want it to be somewhere. That's all. Yeah, you can do all your responsive stuff in HTML without changing your CSS. You can do modifiers, and it's just a lot easier. I honestly stopped using design tools. Like I used to use Sketch first and then I'd code. I haven't used Sketch since I've started using Tailwind. I just design and code and extract stuff that needs to be extracted and shared and just leave the classes. It's fine. Works for me. Yeah, so but when you do componentize SCSS and then do a lot of specific targeting, you end up with a ton of CSS, and then when you want to reuse something, you can't because you've specifically targeted it with deep nested styles. So like you might have something that looks like, blog post, title, icon, SVG like this, and all it is like height 10 pixels, width 10 pixels. Or maybe it's just like, display, flex, whatever. And then you want to reuse this somewhere else. So you're like, okay, blog post, title, icon, SVG, comma, SVG helper, display flex. And then you have this kind of like weird stack of things when you could just add flex on the thing you need. Naming things semantically, I've found, causes so much headache down the road because as the site grows, you don't know which way is it going to grow. Like maybe the blog ended up not being that popular. Now you have a news section of your site, but all your CSS that you want to reuse in the news section is scoped as blog, and now you're duplicating it or you're renaming it. Maybe you're breaking stuff because you're changing the class names. If instead you just kind of did a lot of that stuff here, you just copy and paste it, drop into a new template, you're kind of done. I mean, I know you can write nice, cleanly abstracted CSS, and I've done it. It just takes so much more mental power to do it that way than it is to just kind of honestly like lazily assemble it. And it turns out it works, and your CSS file is smaller, especially after you run like purge CSS. You end up with like 20 kilobytes of CSS because you don't have all these duplicate accessor or like duplicate selectors. So I'm super happy. But yeah, that was absolutely my first thought. I'm like, who wants to write all those classes? Like, aren't we past that? And why are you calling it blue? Where's the semantics? And turns out they're not that important most of the time. Yeah, that's all. That's my opinion. You are welcome to your own. Just saying, like, if it kind of makes sense, play around with it and see what you think. It's not that hard to get up and running. You can just include the CDN version and just kind of play around with like the basic classes. They give you this right here, this one. Just pull that on, play around. And then you're not going to be able to do the apply stuff by doing that, but you kind of get an idea for it and see what you like. So there you go. Okay. Yeah, if you put a few hours into it and you don't see the benefit, I mean, maybe you build a certain type of site where like highly scoped CSS is better. But I've built huge applications and just feel so much better this way. Like there's certainly time and a place for like a well-established CSS component that has all the styles inside it, especially if you want someone else to be able to like override it. Like Statamic's control panel uses a lot of Tailwind under the hood, but like not a lot of inline Tailwind, a lot of apply type stuff, because you may need to be able to override anything on the fly in the control panel in a particular section, right? So like maybe, there's a bunch of more buttons in one section of the control panel, and you now need to like center them on a small browser instead of like right align them. And that's stuff's just really easy to do with Tailwind. Laracon videos, I think, were released yesterday. I saw somebody tweet that. I can Google that for you. Pretty sure I saw them out. Yep. Now this is just Laravel News, the live stream. That's fine. So there you go. The original source said all the text were available, and that was incorrect. So I guess they're not all available, but some of them are. Freak, Samantha, Jason, even you, Taylor, Otwell, Bob Martin. That one was extremely entertaining. Ryan Holiday's was super good. Yeah, I mean, Caleb's talk, these were all really good talks. Laracon was awesome this year. Wes Boss's talk was awesome on CSS Grid. Yeah, go check out the Laracon videos. Like these are excellent. Why are you watching this? Those are better. All right. We're gonna end this now. Thanks for hanging in there. Next time.